So, hey, thanks for coming. We know it's kind of early, and we're going to blow through this fairly quickly. Couple of quick notes. We are waiting for one of our engineers to show up because we want to show you some in-engine capabilities. But we're uSens. Alex Delgado is our director of UX, also heads up the demo team. I am Mark Morrison. I'm on the business development side and marketing. And we have a booth here with some demos. So today, if you want to come see the demos, I forget the booth number, but we are on the other side of Z-Space and the VR side, so far south of the hall, VR hall. And we are a startup. We're based in San Jose. Real quickly, we started 3 years ago, 3 co-founders. Anli He is our CEO. Dr. Yue Fei is our CTO. Chris Shi is our COO. Anli and Yue had the core team here in San Jose, and Chris Shi is helping run the operations in China. So we have about 53 employees at this point, split in half. We've got applications and some development in Hangzhou. We've got senior computer scientists in Beijing, and then we do manufacturing design in Shenzhen. But again, the core team and the business is headquartered here in San Jose. Had a pretty cool announcement yesterday. We finally closed an A round, so we've got some resources here to what we hope is push through this year, giving a lot of support to developers. As a startup, the vision for us was to really be a part of the human-computer interaction revolution of ARVR. And when I say that very quickly, we look at mouse and keyboard as being pretty revolutionary in how we dealt with computers and interacted with them way back when. Probably some people here a little bit younger than me or part of that 80s phase or even 70s. Mouse and keyboard. Then we had the touch screen for smartphones that really we think was a big factor in kind of revolutionizing the way we interact with our smart devices. So now we have AR and VR. Today we're really going to focus on VR and the Fingo technology that we've got for hand tracking. And these little babies up here just came out of Shenzhen, and a very hard effort. These represent the hardware that people here hopefully are going to want to get. And we're going to open up our closed beta this month for developers. So we will definitely provide anybody here today priority on the list to get dev kits, and we're going to be releasing those starting next week. So if there is anybody that's out of the country, I'd want to talk to you today about that, because maybe we can let you take one. These closed early beta will be under NDA. And it can be a mutual NDA, but we're doing that for some reasons in June that we can tell you about. But just know there are some terms and conditions that come along with the early beta usage of this. Anyway, I'll get into this, and then Xiong Hua is one of our engineers. If he shows up, I in advance ask for your kind of forgiveness. Let him set up here, and we'll look at the engine. Otherwise, we'll describe a little bit of what that is, and then after the talk today, we can sit down with people individually today and show you some things. So again, I'm Mark, and this is Alex. I'll give it to Alex a little bit because he's very much an expert in UX. So remember to turn that mic on. So a couple of things that are interesting for us before we get into this. You know, why are we doing what we're doing with the hand tracking for mobile? You know, there's a lot of play for the tethered systems and what's going on there, but we look at mobile and an opportunity for developers now developing VR specifically for Gear VR, Google Cardboard. We know iOS is going to come to play at some point. I think most of us in the room are doing the same thing, just waiting patiently, but excitedly probably. So, you know, there's over 2 billion handsets in the marketplace. So this really does represent what I would consider, or what we would consider, a fairly deep blue to start with. When we look at VR, the top picture is a gratuitous picture of my daughter who loves Gear VR. Her favorite app is the Blue. And the Blue, I don't know if you've gone through the Blue. It was a demo on Gear VR. Looks like it's going to have an update because the other day she made me realize it's gone. They pulled it from the store. So you just see a little kind of imprint. So maybe a commercial app is coming out. But my daughter, I think, represents a really healthy perspective of what we can expect for VR, especially for mobile VR, because she's not 3 yet. So she's not, you know, writing or reading, but she's doing the things that we do in life on smart devices and iPads. When she puts that on, though, she loves to go underwater. So making the impossible possible, a 3-year-old can't go underwater. She loves the beach. We go to the Monterey Aquarium. She can do everything but that. So when she gets underwater, she, to me, represents this immediate attraction to anybody from our grandparents to younger people who might get into VR and want to see or be somewhere that they can't physically be. So I'm getting somewhere with this, but it's important for us to remember kind of the context of what VR represents going forward. And I'm sure everybody here is probably as versed, if not more than me, in what that kind of means for presence and virtual presence. But what's the killer app? And we ask ourselves that a lot. I think what we represent, what we'll talk about today, is giving you the ability to have a hands-free interaction, virtual interaction in mobile VR. So we're trying to get away from the temple touch, that thing that's kind of annoying when you're looking. And again, back to my daughter, she's a great use case, or focus test. I don't know when my messages are coming into the phone. So in Gear VR, you actually, if that stuff comes in, you have to take it off and turn that stuff off. So wouldn't it be cool if you had a hands-free UI where you could just go in and kind of do what Tom Cruise did in Minority Report, but it would all be for good reasons. It wouldn't be for necessarily for law enforcement. So how does our stuff work? Well, right now we have early support, what we consider mature beta, but it's still early kind of end user support for Android. And we feel that providing the SDK for a Unity 3D developer is key. How many out here are Unity developers? Okay. How many out here are developing with Java? Okay. And C++? Okay. Anybody not doing any games and never will do any games, only serious stuff? Okay, cool. So that's the other thing that's interesting. I was on a panel yesterday at 12, and I'm not sure where this information was going, but it was a good dose of professionals and their perspective on kind of where we're at with development. And one thing I realized, for every one game developer that we talk to about VR development, we talk to 5 or 6 that are non-game developers. So really the VR opportunity, hate to admit it out here to gamers, but it's not going to be about games long term. Short term it might, but it'll be meaningful. But we do want to support the Unity 3D developers. So immediately following this, we'll talk to individuals who are interested, but we've got support now for Unity 3D. We provide an SDK for that, for Gear, as well as for cardboard output, and what will be Daydream. And then, of course, native is different. So definitely want to support these now. In the future, there will be more support. We talk to a lot of folks that have things like, they use a Python or something else. So we're working on that, but we're prioritizing right now Android mobile. We'll have PC support in July, and then hopefully iOS. Again, that's a TBD. That's due to Cupertino. We are looking for your feedback and support. So definitely with this stuff, what we're looking to do is have the real developers out here bang on it, come back and tell us, what is working and what isn't. Designing, and this is something that's really, really, really important. Of course, I'm up here kind of preaching, practicing my not as good as the choir singing. You all are the choir. I'm not the choir. I'm a business guy. But what I do know is listening to people like Timothy West from Unity. Has anybody seen Timothy West's presentation on design in VR? Highly recommend it. If you go online, she's probably got a number of them. Unity had a Unite in Amsterdam this week. So there's probably some more there. But what's interesting about how Timothy looks at it, and why I would agree with her, is we're going back to the fundamentals of learning how we interact. Again, it's the HCI stuff. So she talks a lot about the mouse and arrow back in the 80s. We didn't really know what that was. The arrow never represented this, thing on the screen. So we're kind of going to the core root of inventing how we interact in VR. So I think a lot of that, for what we can provide immediately for the hand tracking this summer, needs to be the right use case. Not every use case is going to be the right use case. And who's your end user? So there's a lot of discussion about how money will be made. If you look in the Gear VR store now, or Cardboard, probably Cardboard, in my guesstimation, isn't monetizing a whole lot. Gear VR is, because a lot of the apps in there are just premium. So we're also going back to a time when we're reinventing, the monetization structure, which we won't get into today. Platform, there's a lot of different opinions out there, but of course, the Unity developers, the value of having the create one, push to a couple opportunity. So what we're not going to do is show you videos here today, because we'll end up putting this online. You can come and see the live interactive demos at our booth. But really quickly, what's your use case and how do we match that? For us right now, what we're able to provide in this scenario is the ability to connect this to your dev phone, which is going to be probably a Samsung. How many people out here develop with a Samsung for mobile? Okay. How many people out here are developing VR mobile not using a Samsung? I won't go into the other ones. Okay, cool. So we're starting to see phones that are powerful enough to work. We work on S6s and 7s. Basically, the phones that have got an 810, but really an 820 Snapdragon level performance are going to be the ones that are going to support this really well this summer. We know of about 24 phones coming out this fall with much higher processing capability, but we're using the GPU and CPU of the phone connected to this. This is 2 infrared cameras, and some lights. And what it's doing, it's our input device, and it's connecting to the phone. And here's a neat nuance that's not neat. Here's an interesting nuance that some of you may or may not know. The very first version of Gear VR had data transfer capability. The next version of it, and I'm not sure which they're called, so maybe it's the second version, did not. They've announced a new Gear VR coming out this fall. The reason why this is important is because we need to transfer data in the USB. And we're working on Wi-Fi capabilities and wireless, but you can imagine why that's not a great transfer capability right now. So supporting you all with this means giving you some basic gestures, but really working with you out there, because the gestures are going to be hopefully unlimited down the road. And that's another reason why we want to work with you all. Our software has components of computer vision as well as machine learning in it. We're not going to get too into the machine learning part of it, but it's, no pun intended, it gets fairly deep, and it's an important nuance of our software. So use cases we think that are really good right now are going to be simple gestures. Click. In my opinion, the killer app will be killer UX. The ability to just remove this dependency so that you're out in front looking at a virtual dashboard. You'll be able to create that because, of course, Unity has lots of GUI and plug-in stuff that helps you just create, very simple things. And also, I'm not sure if you guys saw the announcement this week, but there's been more additions to the Unity engine, editing VR and VR. So things that we're working on internally with demos and also with some other folks, art. So 3D art. Tilt Brush is just a killer app on Vive. Has anybody here played Tilt Brush? Yeah? What'd you think? Was it fun? Yeah. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. So we're actually going to be able to support down the road 3D art creation in apps. So we think art is a great one. Obviously, the Dr. Stark, the virtual dashboard, kind of goes without saying. And on the bottom right, these are the types of things like Job Simulator has a neat little kind of area where you don't need room scale, and you can just have a dashboard in front of you. So think simple gestures to begin with. One thing that I want to make sure everybody's aware of is we will be able to start doing more difficult tracking of things that are occluding, fingers and hands. But right now we're not doing a lot of trigger stuff or punching or motorcycle or helicopter. But these are things that we want to talk to you all about out there because we think the development community, if we come together, we can probably help each other build a lot of libraries for these gestures. I'm going to give Alex a minute to talk about UX, and we're at 9:14. I know we've only got 15 more minutes. In a way, we're waiting for the engineer so we can show you a little bit of an engine. If we don't, we definitely are going to stay afterwards and then be available at the booth to show you. And then we're going to go through a little bit of the process of how to sign up and get involved. Do you want to talk a little bit about UX? And
I'll just talk a little bit about what we're doing at uSens with our technology. And just out of the get-go, we knew that I don't want to talk about gaming. I don't want to talk about the industries out there, although what we're trying to do caters for every single type of industry, whether it is medical industry, whether it is an industrial industry, gaming industry. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to cater every single one of you guys that are developing for Unity and moving forward for other platforms out there, whether it is Java, C++, or so on and so forth. We knew that one of the first things we needed to make it portable. And we needed to make our UI, we needed to make you guys possible to do UI, UXs, or games, or applications in the easiest of ways, not having the dependency of using the mouse and keyboard like we've been using for the past 20, 30 years. So what we did is we built this little device. I know Mark talked about it a little before. We call it Fingo. What it is a simple device, like I said, 2 cameras, a couple lights. It tracks every single movement of your fingers. It tracks every single movement of your hands. So actually what we have is 26 degrees of freedom for your hands. So it does, at this point, sorry about that, it does track a lot of your hands and a lot of the movements. But we're also working right now, we're working on techniques on how to make objects that feature in the real world, in the VR world or AR world, connect to and react to your finger positions, your finger movements, and so on and so forth. I mean, one of the examples is, for example, is when you're trying to push a button in VR, usually your fingers go through buttons, right? And we can actually simulate several feedbacks for the button itself, but what we want to do is we want to have a more haptic feedback, not just on what you're seeing, but actually on what you're feeling. So we're getting to that point, and I know the industry is getting to that point right now, where all of our techniques will come into place so that users in general can do sorry, I just looked at one of our
But
tech.
that's an interesting point, actually. I'm sorry, the mic went off. I'm sorry. I'll let him turn it on. We're trying to capture this, I think, for repurposing. It's an interesting point. As Alex and we are building demos internally, when you think about it, well, you don't have to think about it because I think most of the people out here have experienced it. How do you connect that real natural interface so that your finger isn't going through the space? And obviously there's coding issues there. And you're going to be, creating that within the XYZ area where you know that you've got a surface or a space where you're trying to affect a change. So you go from neutral to active. So these are things that actually this summer we want to work closely with developers. You all in the room, while you're definitely watching us in transition here, get our engineer up to show you hopefully a little bit of engine. And again, we're not in any rush. So today we want to talk to everybody. You all are going to be, other than a few developers right now that we've been working with the last 2 months, the very first developers who have this hardware. And we'll create a program where we want to get the feedback that you've got and look at your repros and really try to help problem solve, because initially the UI and the kind of juxtaposition and the balance of making that work and feel right and natural is going to be something that we really look to the developers to help us with. But one thing that we want to reemphasize here, these may not be the use cases for what we can support this summer. Not only is it kind of difficult for a mobile phone to process that many bits and pieces for VR, so think very heavily about how you can use this and affect it. It may just be giving your end user the ability, again, to turn off the interference in the screen without having to take the phone out. So using uSens Fingo is going to be fairly straightforward. I'm not going to use the word simple because that's kind of a bad word to use in the sense of we're developing. So nothing is ever going to be simple. But it's going to be straightforward in that we'll have the website open next week. Hopefully everybody here will get a card from us, will give us their information, and what we'll do is we'll be in touch with you next week about how we're going to get you the hardware and the software. And again, we've got a few terms and conditions. They're not going to be onerous. It's just we want to protect ourselves while we're finishing some various legalese stuff. So we just want to make sure we're working with people to understand. We don't want you to take the thing apart and put it on the internet initially. So we just have that mutual NDA bit that I wanted to tell people about ahead of time. We can talk about that again today one-on-one. Hardware will come to you. Right now we support Android developers. You will need to have an account, a developer account. And Xiong, do you need to have an Oculus account for Gear VR? I forget. Do you need to have a Gear VR developer account? Okay. So Xiong may talk a little bit about that, but you guys could probably teach me a thing or two about that. Technical support will definitely come in the form of remote, online. It'll be fairly live and responsive. We've got people up around the world pretty much 24/7. This part we're going to come right back to because Xiong's going to show us a little bit. So I'm going to, in the interest of time here, just to save some for him, kind of get you to a point where, how you doing, Xiong? Doing good? Come on up, buddy. Don't feel shy. We've got good friends here. They wouldn't have come so early. And Xiong, come on over here. Well, actually, here, yeah. You guys bear with us really quickly. You want to plug in?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to let him plug in. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Actually, I'm gonna do what we here. I'll give you that. Let's do some Q&A really quickly, but we'll do it in a way that we need to capture questions. Are there any questions at this point that are So let me do this. Let me come down. Hand me that one, please. Oh, you got it. Okay, Patrick's going to come to you, and feel free to ask a technical question now. I won't be in danger.
Okay. Am I live? Hello? Okay. Hey, really cool looking stuff. I have one question. In addition to the hand tracking, I was looking on the website and I thought I might have seen some reference to potential positional tracking.
Yeah. So here's the interesting part, and I'm comfortable doing this. A little bit of my background. I've done a lot of games. I was at Unity from 2010 to 13. Don't see any Unity faces out here, but did a lot of development support and developer support, being a business person. I'm going to share some things here today. At Unity, we kind of had a mantra. We can tell you everything. We just can't guarantee anything. Kind of same mantra here. I'll tell you a bunch of things we're working on. These are not necessarily confidential, but we don't have roadmap dates for these. We do plan to support position tracking with this same input technology. We do have some of that working. Okay, it's a little bit heavier lifting. So without kind of sharing things that I'm not super informed on, we do plan to support that. So the lineage will be supporting Android developers and mobile developers with platforms that make sense. At this point, I don't think we'll chase a Windows mobile, but we will next plan support this same device for PC. So those of you now that are using another device on an Oculus or a Vive, our plan and hope is to have that capability with this summer. So that would be sometime between July and August. The next would be, hopefully Cupertino will pop up and have something for us to do. Right now, because of the USB requirement, we're needing a little bit more to do with the iPhone than we can do, and you guys know the drill there. And I have a lot of confidence in Apple, so hopefully we'll see them get in the mix here. So yeah, Android PC, position tracking will come soon. We do that differently at our booth with RGB cameras, so come by and kind of learn the technology, because we're also going to support it that way. And we have other hardware that we're going to be providing out to hardware makers.
We have another question over here.
I was curious if you support any of the AR wearable, like maybe the Epson BT.
So that's a great question, and one that I didn't expose here because it's one of the biggest concerns for developers on the business side. That's great. I can make it for me, but who's going to see it? Who can experience it? We're working very aggressively and I would say smartly with the real big targets that we're trying to go for, which is supporting platforms and hardware makers. Our philosophy is to support developers at every angle. So you all are really our kind of most important individual customer out there, but it's at every level. So engineers and developers working at platform, hardware, and the content. But we definitely plan to have support for commercial devices in 2016 with some partners. And then moving forward, we've got some more aggressive plans. What's interesting is we've got good company. I want to kind of give a special call out to Leap Motion. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting and the hard work for getting everybody understanding what you can do with this type of technology. Leap, uSens, and a company called Gestagon that's here as well. Maybe a couple weeks ago you saw Obama looking at a cardboard with some googly eyes on it. That was a Gestagon. We're all doing similar technology, inside-out tracking. So we're all tracking skeletal hand. And I want to give them a call out because there's really only 3 that we see right now providing this tech. Leap Motion does it great and supports PC. We're targeting mobile. Gestagon's targeting mobile. We're really focused on mobile developers. So that's kind of the theme here. But yeah, we know that the kind of end result here needs to be millions of end users capable of experiencing what you built. All right, one more, and then we ready?
Yes.
Cool. Why don't you just run through, once we get them, we'll run through a couple here. Go ahead.
Can you just distinguish your product versus Leap Motion?
Yeah, the obvious differentiator technically is we support mobile and they support PC. They did have an announcement a couple days ago, which was neat. They're going to embed in a Chinese version HMD. I forget the company name, starts with a B. But the differentiator for uSens is that we support mobile initially, and that's really our focus. Okay, we ready here?
Yes.
You plugged in? Okay. I really thank you all for listening to a little bit more kind of non-dev talk. Xiong is going to talk a little bit, and Xiong, just a time check here. You've got 5 minutes, so
Okay.
pack a punch.
So what I show you is our Unity SDK, which is not released yet, but we will release it soon. So what you can see is there's a mesh hand which bind to our finger device, can get our hand data, which will be worked as well on mobile phone, which I will show you later. So what you can see is we check like 22 joints of the hand, and it's like almost no latency. Latency is about less than 10 milliseconds, so the speed is quite good. And in the okay, so
And I'm going to help Xian here. We're actually tracking 2 hands now. We're showing you very solid 1-hand tracking, but we are moving forward. We've got the 2-hand support.
So another prefab we made is the stick hand, which can be seen much clearer than about what we are tracking right now, like 22 joints on the hand and some bones around it. So developers can get the transformation of every joint, so they can do anything with their 2 hands. So okay, so this is.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You know, it's really interesting, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of reading people's minds. So how will you create the actual hand? when you see our demos, you see a hand, and right now you see that skeletal. So can you talk a little bit about how that process would happen?
Okay, so first of all, we can get our data from our finger device, and in Unity SDK, we can customize our own joint, our own fingertip, and own bones, perhaps to render any kind of bones or hand. So in the stick hand, you can like make your own fingertip joints and bones to make it like a green hand, red hand, something like that. And on the mesh hand, just like any other SDK, you can bind a skeleton model to every joints, so that our finger data can drive all the joints to make it look like a hand, just move around your hand. So you can any hand skeleton model to like fit your hands. You can be a baby hand or anything hand like that.
I have a question. I'm going to run short on time here. While we've got the engineer here, are there technical questions or development? Let's maybe do a couple questions because I don't want to run out of time for that. Hang on one
Okay.
second. Patrick's. So if you've got a question, definitely get a mic because we're recording. The show is recording this.
Yeah, you said latency is 10 milliseconds, but on plain eye it's more like 500 in the demo. So can you clarify that?
It's because at first my laptop is not linked to the power, and in the Unity I add some smoothness. If you can see, there's one smoothness over here, and maybe there's some data transforming latency as well on this demo. Maybe you can go to our booth. Where's our A04 to see our demo? It's quite smooth.
Yeah, our attraction to this early beta is to have you tell us what you're getting. What's your performance? We're a very transparent company. If any of you look at our Kickstarter, we're very upfront, and what we want to do, while we're not going to supply open source for everything, we see the value in opening the development community, and so there will be hopefully a space for us to share this information, but it's going to vary. But we do need your guys' help to help us get that performance up to where it needs to be. The Samsung folks are smart, and they want everything at 90 frames per second. Well, that would be wonderful, right? And maybe we'll get there in a couple years. But we do need to work with the development community to get this stuff in parity. Another question?
I've got one more back here, and we're still waiting on. Is Unity in the house? Yeah. Oh, you are.
Unity in the house. Let's give a
okay,
big
there
call
we
out
are.
to Unity.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right. So we got one more minute. Last question, and then we'll get Mark from Unity up here.
Two quick questions. Is the pre-programming of the skeletal model, is it like real time, or if I'm grabbing something, is it real time to what I'm grabbing? So when I grab an object, or
Yes, it's real time.
so if it's if I'm going over a cylinder, a small cylinder, a big cylinder, it's going all the way around, or is it kind of pre-programmed to movements of the joint?
No, because it's all real time,
Oh, okay.
and we can check unseen joints as well.
Okay.
So if some fingers are just very far away or be hidden from your palm, we can see it as well.
Okay, and then the other question is, have you investigated haptics with this technology right now? Because that's what we're really interested in as a development tool for, I'm in the auto industry, so we're looking at.
Right. So we are in the process of investigating and researching on haptic feedback, both from not just from the objects, but also from what you see and what you're feeling with your hands. So at this point, we're doing a lot of research, and again, we need the developers' feedback to keep on going with our technology and keep on enhancing our technology for all of you guys.
But anybody
So yes.
out there, sorry to interrupt, anybody out there that can help with that, we love the haptic solutions that come along with the medical simulation, going through bone, skin, tissue. Automotive is another one we've thought about. So again, if you're a developer of tools, we also want to talk to you. 3D cloud mapping, things like that become really relevant in what we're doing. And so we're also interested in partnerships with tools folks. So if you know anybody out there that's got good haptic solutions, definitely send them our way.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think
Hello?
we're done.
Yeah,
here.
thank you very much.
So hang on. You know what?
Mark,
We're,
Alex,
yeah,
and Xiang. Oh, go ahead.
we're going to stay after, but to respect Mark and Unity, hang on. I'm going to give that to you. No, that's okay. We're going to come to the back, and then when they start, we'll go outside. But definitely want to cover everybody here. If you want a dev kit, let's get your information.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Thanks.
for coming.
Let's give it up for uSens. Thank you very much.